welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I am Rachel. This is Jason. We are very glad that you were able to join us today. This week, we have an interesting topic. It's one that I suggested, and then...
Which was a surprise.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me. Go ahead.
It is a bit surprising. And then you were like, oh, really? Wow. And I think you just ran with it from there. So I think this is going to be a little bit more of you, but I think that it is one that, as a fantasy and fiction reader, it struck me as, why is there so much of this type of literature? So, what type? That would be literature with demons in it. And I think that it's one of those that I've kind of never really known where to land on that as a Christian. And that's kind of one of those where there's a lot that, there's Christian literature out there that has demons in it. I don't think I was even a teenager yet when I first discovered Frank Peretti.
This Present Darkness. There's like two of them, right?
This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness.
Yeah.
And then The Oath is another one that also has...
it touches on that a little bit.
Yeah. Very heavily features demons. And even his youth series was another one that I read that also has just this aspect of spiritual warfare in it. That really shaped my view of what demons were. And then I got a little bit older and I read things like Terry Pratchett's Good Omens, which we've talked about that one.
Only in the apocalyptic part of it. I think we didn't go into the spirituality behind it. If we do that, it's gonna there's a lot more to unpack.
There is a lot more to unpack in that one. And some of the other books that I read, fiction, that had demons in it would be Terry Brooks' Running with the Demons series. And each one of those very much depicted demons in a very different way. And then, let's see, after you and I got married, I decided, I'm going to watch Supernatural.
How many years of it did we get through? Yeah, there's like 15 seasons.
I don't think I even got through the entire first season before I noped out of that one.
Yeah. So... I watched a good deal more, and I think as it got to more of I don't think I watched the last 3 seasons of it. I kind of, they had it on Netflix, and so it was easy to binge. But I don't think that I would have been able to watch and just go through it as long as other people have gone through. And I have been exposed to more, unfortunately or fortunately, maybe I can recontextualize that in my mind, but horror style stuff that would have more demonic stuff in it. And
which that's something that I have not really watched horror movies.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, I think
I can, pull the good out of it.
Signs is about and I don't know that I would call that horror more than... Is that classified as horror?
Can I give you a small snippet really quick? I won't, and you can tell me to knock it off. But there's actually a fan theory that the creatures in Signs are not aliens, they're demons. Because water affects them, and the main character is a pastor, is he not? Former pastor. And so all the water in his house supposedly is holy, and that's why when the little girl, actually they smack the water into the alien, and he gets burned. Okay, so that's an interesting theory, but
I guess saying all that to say, I tend to be a person that is a little bit more sensitive to the themes of the demonic, and where I kind of... movies with that type of stuff in it, I really don't I don't enjoy. I think that if you put any kind of demonic content and then you put scary music with it, and the visuals, it's just way too much for me. But depending on how it's presented in literature, I will be more a little bit more okay with it. I still have to be very, very careful. And I guess that's something that as we're going into this, when we were talking about, okay, we want to do an episode on demons, I went, okay, but we don't want to make this sensationalized. We
Right.
don't want to present this in a way that seems like we're
Making it attractive or something you might want to dig into in certain instances.
I would say that the psychology, though, of how demons are presented a lot of the times, because a lot of the times in a lot of fiction, you take the evil out of demons, and we tend to humanize them a lot more. And that's something that we wanted to get into. And then just kind of roadmap for where we're going in this episode. We wanted to talk about the psychology of demons, wanted to give some examples, and then we wanted to talk about what the real is somewhat.
And there's some fiction that goes, you talked about humanizing demons. There's some fiction that goes the absolute opposite of that and makes them the most evil thing ever, which we'll talk about it when we talk about the real biblical basis. And that even though it's like they go that way and show the evil, but they go way too far and they do exactly what you're talking about. The sensational, your friend said, "Oh, you got to see this. It's crazy. It's super scary. You got to see this. It's a crazy movie." And that's a sensationalist thing about it. That if you really were in a demonic situation, you would not want to share that with anybody else. But we share horror movies with other people going, "Oh, it was crazy. It was really good effects or something," and the acting or whatever. But
So,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, there probably is a lot of different opinions on this topic. We're presenting ours. So if you choose to come along for the ride with us, awesome. We hope you do. Um, okay, kind of where I wanted to start,
Okay.
because I know that you have a lot. I'll let you get to all of that.
I'm flexible.
I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about how demons are presented in Frank Peretti's works.
Yeah.
In This Present Darkness is the first one, and then Piercing the Darkness is the sequel to
Right.
that. So if you aren't familiar with those, this is a very Christian depiction, and it is very much spiritual warfare. You're following angels who are there. They are directly connected. Their strength comes from the prayers of the saints, which I always thought was really cool. And their numbers, it's like they're fighting and maybe they're struggling, and then God is prompting the saints to pray. And then as they're praying, it's like boom, the angels are getting stronger.
It's Popeye with his spinach.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you're seeing this direct effect on the spiritual world of what the humans are doing, and this link of the spirit of God prompting the saints to pray, of laying that on their hearts, and that directly affecting the angels and the demons and how they are battling. And it just, the way that all of that worked together was
Well,
just fascinating.
what about who the demons can touch and who they can't touch? Like it's like there are places they can't go or they have a hard time going, either because they have resistance spiritually, and these demons, as portrayed in Frank Peretti's, they are nasty. They're gross. They're like they use like
There's a sulfur smell.
frog skin. It's just
Yeah,
it's not
they're dark and leathery and just creatures.
right. I'm sure that there's flies that surround those beings, or you know.
And they all had kind of names based off of characteristics too. There was greed and
Oh,
rage and hate, and so all of these emotions.
that's very John Bunyan. with
Mm-hmm.
Pilgrim's Progress, where he
Mm-hmm.
would name people like Slothly or something like that, or Worldly Wise or something like that.
Right.
Very on the nose. But you can do that in the spirit realm, and it makes a lot more sense. And you're not obsessing over your Uziels and Raphaels and Samaels and Azazels and Asmodeus and all these different names. You're not thinking about those names. You're thinking about the representations. And I think that can be a powerful thing. I just thought of that.
So, I mean, as a kid, as far as I knew, that was as much as anybody knew about angels and demons. And, I was kind of taking this fictionalized work as, yeah, that's probably the way it is, right?
It's close. It's like
Yeah.
it matched up to a lot of traditional Christianity
Hmm.
belief systems. Yeah.
And yeah, it still is one of those that I would recommend reading to most people. I think that it was really interesting. And I think that of anything, the thing that you got out of it is the wisdom of God and the power of prayer. And that we actually can, as humans, have an effect on the spiritual world and what is happening there. And then just, the, yeah, like you were saying, the boundaries of what the demons were allowed to do to the humans, how much they were able to, what their boundaries were.
Footholds. You
Mm.
say you don't give the devil a foothold, where he can climb up into your tower or whatever you want to. I don't know. But that's what I was talking about. Is you're giving the demonic a place with which to function. So I was just thinking about, why do they say holy? This ground is holy, holy ground. But that's what I kind of felt when. And it's been many years since I've read those books. What was another book that reminded me of? Screw Tape Letters,
Mm.
with the power of prayer. The two demons are talking to each other, Screw Tape and Wormwood, and they're talking about, we get them distracted, they won't pray, or if they get bored in church, they won't listen to what's being said, or things like that. So that's just what I thought about when you said that.
Mhm. There's very much a strong idea of that has been built up in Christianity
Mm-hmm.
of what demons are and how they interact with us and what their boundaries are. And it kind of does beg the question of where did we get that?
Right. So we could talk about what traditional Christianity, and I'm talking about Protestant and Catholic, modern belief systems say, is that from what I could tell, a lot of the demon oppression and possession and different things like that, diseases, things like that were happening, so you start to see that come in really heavy in the New Testament. And you see Jesus coming into direct conflict with these beings, these unclean spirits, and they are oppressing people. It's many times manifesting in physical ailments and things like that. It connects that a great deal with it. It says, they were healed, all those who were oppressed to the devil. And then it dovetails right after that and says, and people's diseases were healed. And many times they were one and the same. There was possession where they would be thrown into the fire. They would throw themselves into the fire. Just horrible things like that. Being out of control of your own body and cutting yourself and doing all those kind of things. And Jesus very often would get the person who was oppressed or possessed, and he would look at them, and he would look at the demon that was possessing them, controlling them, and he would say, and he would confront them and command them with his authority. And it was an authority that, many people at the time would perform rituals that had meaning within the either they were Middle Eastern or Near Eastern ritual, or they had to do with rabbinic teachings or things like that. Or they would always mention God or a saint, or like Moses or something like that, or Solomon. And here comes Jesus, and he goes, and he has authority, and the demons immediately recognize his authority. They say, "What do we have to do with you, son of David?" They recognize, whereas other people were like, "I don't know, is this guy the Messiah? Is this?" And the demons are like, "This guy, we know who he is." And it's not our time. It's like they were expecting to have more time, and he shows up and goes, "No, your time's done. Your time's up." It was calling them on notice. But not only did Jesus come and come into a world where exorcisms at the time were semi-common, he was doing it under his own authority. So much, he was so successful at it that even the Pharisees were saying, well, he's in league with the devil doing this. And Jesus had some not so kind words for them. So, and not only was something that he did, was that the apostles and the disciples and people after Jesus ascended were given that authority. I even said to Peter, the keys, hand you the keys. And even one guy even said, I'll pay you money if you'll show me how to do this thing that you do. It's not
Simon the sorcerer.
Simon the sorcerer. It's not, and of course you see a situation where a young girl was possessed, where she would, and then she would be able to tell the future, which is interesting how we see that today, is people claiming to have that second sight and see the future and have those psychic abilities. And where are they getting them from? Well, they may say from God, but I kind of think, I don't think you mean what do you think you mean. I think it's somewhere else. I think it's from somewhere else and something else. But that's the traditional belief system on it. What are demons? Fallen angels, they say, because Satan himself was a fallen angel, according to that. So what are all the other ones but, some of those that fell with him, that rebelled with him? So obviously those are the ones that are doing these things. That's the thought.
And we get that strictly from, there's not many passages that talk about that, right? We say that, we hear that like 1/3 of the
that's in Revelation, where it says that the dragon swiped his tail and 1/3 of the stars. And many times when they say stars, it's using coded language for angels or heavenly host, right? So that's probably where that comes from. Even the Bible passage, I think it's Isaiah, where it actually talks about, uses the word Lucifer, but that's actually Latin for bringer of light, or morning star, or light. We get the luz means light. So, but that's Latin though. It's Hallel is in Hebrew.
We have the name Lucifer, but when Jesus referred to, like, I've heard him called Satan and the devil.
Yeah.
In scripture. There's not been a name given to him or to any of the other demons that I know of, other than when Jesus said, "What is your name?" and the demon said, "Legion, for we are many."
And but basically, that wasn't a name. That was actually a bunch. It was just saying that's what.
I guess in the canonical Bible, there's mention of demons, there's mention of Satan, of what their role is, that they, that the devil is a roaring lion, roaming about seeking whom he may devour, that we have an enemy. We know that we're in a spiritual battle with unseen forces, but there's not a lot beyond that God did reveal to us.
It's in the Old Testament too, though. You get
we know that it's that it's there and that it's real, but he didn't give a lot of details.
No, not necessarily.
And I guess that's something that humans ever since then have been trying to fill in the details, Now, one thing that, before we go back to the fiction, one thing that was really interesting to me, because there is such a kind of, to me, it seemed like there was a consensus of what the demons were, that, and where all we've gotten these ideas and how much they're actually biblically based or not, But there was one person that we were looking into that had kind of a different idea of where demons come from, and that is Dr. Michael Heiser. Now, my introduction to Dr. Heiser was my brother sending me videos.
Right.
And as I'm listening through these, I'm going, okay, hold on now. This is something completely new that I'm not sure I'm prepared to accept, because I don't know who this is, and I don't know why he's saying this and where he's got this, and I've never heard this before. And I'm going to just go ahead and throw out the thing that I what really was the big question mark for me.
Okay.
And that was, I'm listening along to different stuff that he's saying about the unseen realm and stuff. And I'm going, okay, okay. And then he said something and he said, now he thinks that demons are not actually fallen angels. They are not a part of the actual heavenly host, that those are separate, but that demons are the souls of the giants, which the giants specifically being the Nephilim, the offspring of the host of heaven that were fallen.
They're hybrid. Yeah, they
Right?
create
They're
creatures.
described as the sons of God that came down and lay with human women and had children. And those children then kind of populated the earth, and that those were the ones that basically these peoples, these offspring that then continued and took over the areas of Canaan that the Israelites were commanded to come in and completely destroy.
Right.
And that it was because they had tainted blood that God actually commanded those specific cities
Bloodlines to be wiped out.
to be completely wiped out. And that, that you could track those bloodlines. And then this concept of when they were killed, their souls, because they're neither fully human and they're neither fully heavenly, right? That
Right.
they have nowhere to go, that they are trapped on earth, just basically going around and seeking after bodies to be able to possess and have a body again. So that is the actual origin of demons, which is a very, very different concept from anything that I had ever heard before. And so, I immediately am going, okay, is this a kook? Who is he? Where did he come from? And you did a lot of research into him and really went in. So I'm going to let you take over there.
I think when some people go, "Hey, what's that TV show or movie?" or on Netflix, and they binge it all. I haven't binged it all, but I read quite a bit because I was like fascinated. And early on, like yourself, I was like, that sounds a little kooky. But when I looked into it, especially if you don't start just with chapter 1 or 2, you start with the early stuff where he's introducing it. You find a very sober-minded theologian who was struck by, in seminary, he was struck by the weirder passages in the Bible. When I say weirder, meaning things that were like unexplained or things that a lot of pastors would just zip by and go, oh, just, let's talk about this other thing. I don't know. And he was struck by, what do you mean I don't know? Let me dig into this. So not only would he look into the canonical Bible, but he would try to get into the mindset of Jews of the time, and also surrounding areas like Canaan and other languages like Ugaritic, if I'm saying that right, and their mythologies. And because he was seeing some similarities between how God was described and how some other things were described. Like there's a phrase, real quick, touch on this real quick. There's a phrase that says, he rides upon the clouds. That's actually what is said about, even Jesus says that he's the Son of Man will come on the clouds, right? And even says that in Matthew, where he talks about the Son of Man come on the clouds. And that is something that Baal was said, the title of Baal. And Baal's a storm god, so wouldn't he come on the clouds, right? But it seems like every chance that God gets, he goes, oh, you think your God is no, I ride on the clouds. And it's very much according to Michael Heiser's theory, it is God taking the gods of the earth and smushing their face in the dirt. So let me explain gods of the earth. So real quick. So his main theory, it seems to fit the facts and fits Second Temple Judaism and other works like Enoch. And Enoch is actually where they talk about the Nephilim being the spirits of, or the demons being the spirits of Nephilim. Right. That's where it goes into that.
I guess I should say is that he's not getting the stuff from, he's getting apocryphal.
Out of the air. He's getting it from.
He didn't just invent it.
Right.
He actually did find us. And I think that, because it's apocryphal and there's some kind of doubt as to some of this stuff, we're not sitting here saying, oh yeah, this theory is
100%
absolutely
canonical
100% true.
gospel.
This
Yeah.
is, we've
Inspired word
discovered
of God.
the answer to what they are. No, we're just saying these are theories, and there's some really fascinating things that you can delve into.
They reveal the culture and the mindset of
Mm-hmm.
people at the time. So when someone said a demon possessed someone, they're going, oh yeah. And they knew what that was. They didn't have to put in the book of Matthew, oh, by the way, this is what we think demons are. No, it goes, we know. And so we know who they,
But again, not everything that people knew or assumed back then necessarily was always true either.
Right.
I mean, Jesus corrected a lot of things.
Right.
God established a lot of things that he directly said, this is so. And there was a lot of things specifically about the spiritual world, the unseen realms, that he just didn't tell us. And that's okay. We're not going to know for sure because God hasn't told us for sure. So
But there's
we can
enough in there.
speculate,
Yeah.
and there's some things that are fascinating that we can delve into. But anybody telling you I 100% have the truth about this, just leave a little question mark there, like,
That's a red
oh
flag to me.
really,
That's a red
really,
flag.
and how do you know? And what else are you saying that's outside of scripture?
Right. And how many of the ideas that we're getting is it someone's tradition? Is it the tradition of man? Is it even from even from fiction? Are we getting these ideas?
But there's a
So,
lot of so-called prophets out there that will state, I have been to heaven and I have seen God and I have seen the angels and I know exactly how it all works and I'm going to tell you all about it.
and who are you to say no? This guy had
And
died on the operating table,
I
and
mean,
who am I to say,
God
right?
revealed stuff to John. We know that God has revealed stuff through prophets throughout history. Just examine everything that they're saying, is all I'm saying.
It
Don't.
says test the spirits to see
Right,
if these things be so,
right.
and it
So,
didn't say have long, lengthy conversations with the spirits and chat them up and invite them in. It said test them, just as you would test somebody who is on your front porch threatening you or saying things. Test them. That didn't say invite them in. Just as a little aside,
yeah.
but that's the thing is the Bible gives us enough to go on.
Mhm.
Um,
We have enough for our daily lives.
Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That also is any unclean spirits that are considered evil influences. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. Also says whatever is good, beautiful, worthy of good report. Think on these things. See, you're separating yourself from demonic influence right there. Also, there's tons of verses in the Bible, especially the Old Testament, that say don't have anything to do with mediums,
Mhm.
necromancers, people that speak to the dead. It mentions something. You remember I said about in the Old Testament, it talks about demons, it talks
Mhm.
about familiar spirits. I tend to think that those are demons that masquerade as ghosts of your loved ones because I don't know. There's a lot of evidence to that leads to that. So don't have anything to do with that. The only spirit you need to have any kind of connection with is the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God. And that's where you need to seek after, the future and what's going to happen.
And we know that God is never going to contradict in the spirit what he's revealed through us through his word. Like, that is a way that we can make sure that we are grounded, is he's revealed, and he said, this is it, this is what I've given you. Anybody, even if it's an angel that tells you something that's doesn't align with this, is they're not they're not from me. So
And
yeah.
well, and so what are we listening to? What angels of light are we listening to in our fiction that's clouding our mind? You want to go into
And I
that?
guess,
Yeah.
well, yeah, let's go back to fiction,
Yeah.
because it's interesting, because just like when we talked about magic, it's like there are magic and witches in the real world, and those are ones we want to stay away from. There's demonic forces in the real world, and those are ones, as Christians, we want to stay away from.
Right.
And then there's these fictionalized accounts, and it's like, well, does that mean that if there's a demon depicted in a book that a Christian should not read it? Well, I would say that depends.
Right.
And it is
Because if you want
interesting.
to stay away from a book that depicts a demon, don't read the Bible. So that should tell you right there. It does depend. She's right.
But there are some that, as I'm reading as an adult, I'm going, well, now this is really interesting the way that they're presenting these, and why are they presenting them that way? And that was really kind of the main thing that I was wanting to get into with
Mm-hmm.
this episode. And as you are looking at books like Good Omens and then the TV series that was based off of the book, it kind of just strikes me as, yes, you have demons, yes, you have angels, but the demons aren't necessarily all bad and the angels aren't necessarily all good. They're kind of really
That's like Supernatural a
both
little
of
bit.
them
There's some bad angels in
bad.
there.
Yeah. The angels are kind of bad in a more benevolent way, and the demons are bad, and the humans are kind of the ones that are good. And the only angels and demon, there's one angel and one demon depicted in that series that are more good, are only more good because they've been adopting humanity since the beginning of time.
And they don't want to see the apocalypse comes, because the apocalypse comes and it's the end of humanity, and they kind of like
Right.
humanity.
So you see these the kind of watered down versions of both angel and demon that are going, yeah, we kind of just want to be human. We want to stay here. We're willing to turn our back on both heaven and hell in order to make that happen. And that, yeah, like you were saying, when I'm looking at Supernatural, I'm kind of seeing the same thing, as the angels aren't really pure and holy.
Because there's some jerky angels, and then there's Crowley. Crowley is later seasons. He is
In
kind of,
Supernatural too?
yeah,
Why is Crowley always a demon name?
I don't know.
What have
Maybe they
they
stole
done?
it from that. So, but Crowley in Supernatural he's jerky, and he's the former king of hell. He got deposed because there's worse than him. And he's kind of like, it's almost like they're morally gray. Like, I'm kind of a
Mhm.
jerk, but I'll do this good thing or whatever. I'm not all bad. And you get into some issues that also
It seems like
yeah.
the humans that are interacting with these supposed higher beings are kind of finding out that their morality is way better than anything else that's out there.
Well, we're a mix of both. Now, one thing you talked about, you said they adopted humanity. There's a line from Good Omens where uh Azir, no,
Aziraphale?
who's the who's the demon? Crowley?
Crowley.
Crowley, I keep getting mixed up. Sorry. Crowley says that the demons actually, some of the ideas for things they got from watching humans, because they're so good at coming up with horrible things. They came up with torture. There's like a certain kind of torture, and he's like, we would never come up with something like that. So what that says is, this is honestly, if you're trying to find theology in this, you'll be sorely mistaken. What One of the authors is Terry Pratchett. He's passed away. But one of the authors is Terry Pratchett, and he used fantasy in the Discworld series to satirize the whole history of humanity, culture, everything we are, our history, our religion, all that, God, all Santa Claus, all those things. And then here he goes into using his version of religious fantasy to also satirize humanity, because he humanizes the angel and the demon to therefore make his little commentary on humans. And if anything, that's what you should pull from it, is a different way of looking at us and who we are. But it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's very irreverent. and sacrilegious in many ways.
It really is interesting how you've got these fantasy or fictional writers that are going. It seems that the main point of what they're trying to do is to use spiritual forces to show that basically humans are on their own.
Or we're
It's
caught in the middle
it's the idea
of
that
his.
God is too far away, he's out of touch,
Yeah,
that the forces that he left here are morally compromised, or they just don't get the beauty that is humanity. And there is an emphasis on that. That humans and their ability to come to learn through and to grow through all of these different things that they go through
right.
gives them this beautiful moral superiority
Well, if
that they've come
yeah,
to. It is a human worship
it is. Yeah.
focus that's happening in a lot
And
of
if you're so
these.
bad, if you angels are so bad, how dare
Mhm.
you judge us? You see what I'm saying? Because you're worse than we are, right? Do you see where that goes? So the angels are coming in judgment, and they're supposedly the good guys. So really, the true good guys are the ones that have the capability of going either way. Humans, so we're the true good guys because yeah, we've got our bad parts to us, but you have that free will to go either way, whereas you guys are just jerks of different sorts. Again, that's a commentary on God too, because if you can say God is evil, right? If you can give these or at least disinterested, if you can give God those characteristics, then you can basically say, how dare you judge us and sit in judgment of us? But if God is, I'm not saying but if God is holy and wholly
Mhm.
other, then and sovereign over the universe, then he can definitely sit in judgment because his judgment is good and pure and beyond, our descriptions. So yeah,
But even just the concept that God is wholly present and active is something that humans have a hard time with that concept because we see evil, we see pain, we see hurt, and we don't want to believe that God could be active and leading and guiding humans through it if we still experience pain.
I think there's a lyric from a song where it talks about God being asleep on the job or something like that. And I think that's a commentary because it's saying why if this it's one of the biggest, again, we cannot cover this one subject, but this is something that causes a lot of people not to believe or at least question enough where they go that route, is the question of suffering. And we kind of touched on that before, but the question of suffering is how a good God can allow evil is one of the biggest things ever, and something we can't really cover in this current. But it does color how you see the whole spiritual pecking order, how you see the spiritual warfare, the battle. Are we just these imperfect beings caught in the middle, and we don't want to be part of either? Both of you just need to leave us alone. You're both jerks. You talked about the sympathetic angle, and there's the Rolling Stones song where it's called "Sympathy for the Devil," but that song is really it's saying, you know, here's all these different things I did, and people were very much against that song because it would sound like you were saying, hey, have sympathy for the devil, but the devil is saying he's asking for sympathy, but you're like, no, no, and it's very playful, but in a way, it's saying all these horrible things he had something to do with. But sympathy for the devil is a trope, and I was reading into this, and it most likely, I can't say for sure, but it most likely came from an unlikely place, a epic book, Paradise Lost by John Milton. He doesn't make you feel sorry for Lucifer or the devil because it shows his fall and his being cast down, but it gives motivation, and it tries to see his motivation wrong and misguided and selfish. But see, the thing is, aren't we wrong? Aren't we misguided? Aren't we selfish? So we start to feel like, oh, yeah, I get it. There's like the line where he says, it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. And he becomes the ultimate rebel. And whether John Milton wanted this to happen or not, we are attracted to rebels. Many times people would say one thing in science and say, nope, this is it. This is how it is. The sun goes around the earth. And then some rebel comes up and goes, no, 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 no. I looked in the telescope and I did all of this mathematical. No, the sun is the center of the solar. We surround the earth. So he could be considered a rebel. So there's something in us that gets attracted to that rebellion. Well, what are we rebelling against?
I think that brings us back to the other thing that we were talking about
Yeah.
was that I feel like a lot of times one of the reasons why we like to humanize demons and we like to see kind of why we like to have sympathy for them, why we like to understand what they're going through is because we kind of are looking for a redemption arc. And a lot of times in these fictionalized works, that is what actually ends up happening is we see someone who we can we can understand. We see why they went wrong and then we see them actually choosing right and we see this redemption. And it's because we want to believe that if even a demon can find redemption, so can we. We're not too far gone, right? And
How many people are taking that lesson from it? The fact that you could take that lesson from it, it kind of redeems certain fictional stories for me. It's funny that they're comic book stuff. Hellboy, who was born a little baby demon, he get summoned by Nazis. Crazy, I know. And he gets adopted by a good man who's a supernatural expert and a scientist, and gets raised to be good. And yes, he might have a destiny as the beast of the apocalypse, but by goodness, he's going to do good and do right, and he just wants to live a normal life. And you got guys like the Ghost Rider, the Flaming Skull, the Bike. He is possessed by a spirit of vengeance, a fallen angel, but he's using that darkness against the demonic oppressors and against those who would do violence against others and do evil. So again, they're
it's the
using the
concept
darkness
of
against the
even
darkness.
someone that's been given the worst cards possible can still choose to make good choices with that they can find redemption. And it is interesting because I think traditionally we think of the devil as maybe not having a choice. He wasn't given necessarily free will like humans are, is something that's commonly kind of tossed around, or
They get one
that maybe
shot.
he had one shot and now he doesn't have another chance. That
That's the way the Jewish belief and the Christian belief
mhm.
also intersect. Is they got one shot, and
And we look at that and say, well, that's not fair because he gave us more than one chance, right?
but it says that
Why
we will
wouldn't he?
judge angels at the end.
So
Did I
it
spoil
kind
that?
of it calls into question our belief in God's justice when you think that he created a being that he didn't give that second chance to, whereas he worked so hard to give us second chances. And I mean, you
Oh,
want
those poor
to,
angels and those poor demons. I'm sure
yeah.
they're really. I hate. I have no sympathy for. Sorry, I have no sympathy for that mindset because, to me, it shows that God sees in us and made in us something special that even Frank Peretti's angels were there ready to protect at a moment's notice, drop of a hat, actually a
Mhm.
folding of hands, so to speak. They were ready to fight. They weren't going, oh boy, this guy again. Like we would do for people helping our neighbor or whatever. Like, oh, I got to cut his grass again. No, they were ready to get in there. They were raring to go, and they are servants of the Most High, and that they do what they are made to do, but they don't have what we have. We have a gift. It's a special gift. That gift of the God of second chances.
Mm. There is one thing that I want to just kind of touch on
Hmm.
briefly with that is the concept that we as humans If we feel like we understand someone's motivations for why they make the choices, and we can rationalize it in any way as understanding and putting ourselves in their place and saying, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing if I had faced all of the things that you have. We are willing to forgive and rationalize just about any action as humans if we understand it. If we don't understand it, then it's pretty much human to say, I won't forgive it at all. If I have never struggled with that thing, or I have never known someone that I actually cared about that has struggled with that, then our snap judgment is just, it's completely unforgivable
We
that
write
they
it
did that.
off. Yeah.
And we'll kind of just dismiss people that are so other than what are, if we haven't experienced it, if we can't sympathize with it, if we can't understand it on any level, then we can't forgive it.
Yeah.
But if we can understand it, we have the capacity to forgive just about anything. And that can take us both extremes to some pretty dangerous places.
Well, I mean, to forgive is not to rubber stamp
Right.
ever. It's not to say what you did was acceptable. What it is to release my spiritual hold on you.
And that's the key. That is the key, I think, to be able to say, I can forgive, but still say it wasn't right. Because I think that a lot of the times when we understand the why, we tend to want to justify it. We tend to want to say, well, they couldn't have done anything else because they were in such bad circumstances. Of course, if somebody was starving and they stole from somebody, well, yeah, of course they did. They shouldn't have even been in that circumstance without being able to say, it's still wrong to take something that's not yours. It's still wrong to hurt someone else to make yourself feel better. However, that ends up, it's still wrong.
And sometimes we have examples of people that we've seen that have had horrible things happen to them or to someone they love, and they have forgiven. There's one that's coming to mind, but you'll probably figure that one out on your own. I have one that I thought about, which was a murderer, a killer who had done some horrible things, and people that had been wronged by this person. Each one of them came up during their sentencing and said, I hate you and da 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 da, and I hope you burn wherever you burn, da 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 da. And then one guy came up and said really was wronged by him and said, I forgive you. And I want to tell you, that man, that murderer guy, was stone faced the whole time. And as soon as the guy said those words, he just collapsed. He broke. You could see his shoulders droop because I'm unforgivable, is probably what he was thinking, the murderer. And so for me, I have a family that I've created together with my wife. And things like that have come into my mind. What would I do? These are things that you never think about as a single man, going about your day-to-day business, working a job. When you have a wife and kids that you love and treasure, that God gave to you, you're supposed to be a steward over them, over that family. What would happen if someone came to threaten that, or if something bad happened? What would I do? And if I see these examples from people fallen, we're all fallen, but we're redeemed by Christ. We see them forgiving the way they do. That may be a very good example for me. I might could.
And ultimately, we know that we can forgive because He first forgave us. We have that example from God for how we can treat other people. To be able to forgive while not dismissing the wrong, while not downplaying it, while not saying, oh, well, it actually wasn't that bad, but to still be able to forgive, that's something that God enables us to do. Because I think that what humans want to do is either, not forgive or to try and say, well, it actually wasn't wrong and here's why.
Humans should be forgiven, and forgiveness is something that Christ shows that can be done. Demons, on the other hand, we would like to caution you not to have absolutely zero goose egg sympathy for any of them. They are to be resisted. They are not to be appreciated. We're talking about the real spiritual warfare, not the metaphorical
And
stories that can be told.
speaking of whether they are fallen angels or whether they are, like Heiser says, they're the souls of,
Unclean spirits of
yeah,
hybrid creatures. Yeah.
right. I mean, either one, they're destructive forces and shouldn't be messed with.
And their
But
main weapons though are deception. They manipulate things in the culture, in the worldview, liars, distractors, things like that. More of the flashy things that you see in the movies is so rare as to almost not be, because it's more insidious than that if you go by a lot of what the documentation is. So when you think about and you look for that more flashy thing to be the evidence of darkness, you're missing it. You're missing the little nudges. What was it? Oh, it's from The Dark Knight. The Joker said, madness is like gravity. All it takes is a little push. So sometimes all a demon would do is push. Just give a little nudge and nudge you away from the heavenly, nudge you away from God, or nudge you in a particular direction or say a particular thing. And you do it all on your own. So that's just my little spiel on how they might operate. But it's not about looking at how they operate. It's looking at how does Christ operate? And when you focus on that and his supremacy, his primacy, his sovereignty, and his power, it's amazing, when you bring the light into the situation, how much the roaches will just run away. So really you have to use discernment when you are reading or watching something, and like anything, and really ask yourself, what, if anything, can I get from this and take away? What am I taking away from this? Am I taking away just a really sensationalism and of darkness, and you're kind of pushing that it's more powerful than light and more powerful than even God, or am I getting something metaphorical about the human experience?
I think that a lot of books that I have read that have had a so-called demon, it kind of treated them about the same as a vampire.
Yeah.
It's really just kind of a fictionalized character that seems kind of almost human at the same time. And in that, to me, it didn't bother me reading that, because to me I went, yeah, I'm just going to call that like a demon and pretend that it's something completely other,
Because
because
they
this
are.
bears
Because the
no
author is
right, it
pretending.
bears no similarity to real in any way.
You might as well
And
say hobgoblin or something. They treat
yeah,
it like a fantasy race or
right,
species of supernatural
right.
bent.
And it really is about as harmless as having an alien fiction, with somebody that lives on another world or realm that's can be connected by a portal to our world, and they have some kind of a magical mystical power.
But like stories of vampires, a lot of young people will get
Mm,
infatuated with that appearance, that lifestyle, whatever that is. And if that transfers over to demon,
yeah,
so you want to teach discernment to your
you do.
kids.
uh, there's a difference between me as over 40 and been Christian my entire life, and what I am okay with reading and how I justify that, and then my kids and what they might be getting, and I always want to be super careful with them. But I think that we've rambled on long enough for tonight.
Use discernment really, and this goes back to when we talked about magic or Dungeons and Dragons. Use discernment. Don't just if you feel like that is a little too on the nose for you as far as the spiritual warfare elements and things like that, depending on how you react to that, you can walk away. You can close the book, you can turn it off, you can go elsewhere. And that's fine. We're not gonna, not gonna tell you how to do your thing, but we just caution you to listen to the spirit and test the spirit of that thing that you're looking at or experiencing. Test it and see how it comes up. Thanks for joining us tonight. We had a good time talking with each other about this, and we'll see you next week. And bye-bye for now.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.